Okay, Tanya, we're up to Perek Mem. 198 at the bottom, page Nun Dalet on top, if you're following it. Okay, before we start Perek Mem, Alter Rebbe was explaining throughout the various different chapters that we were learning. The number one, action is what counts. Because this is an action world, Mashiach is going to come into an action world. Therefore, to have emotional mitzvahs or intellectual mitzvahs or Kabbalistic thinking of mitzvahs, if you don't put on the tefillin, if you don't light Shabbos candles, it doesn't do anything. Nevertheless, Alter Rebbe said that if you have a mitzvah without intent, it's like a body without a soul. So again, the Alter Rebbe is explaining why the kavanah comes into it. Kavanah is the life of the mitzvah, the spirit, the wings that make the mitzvah fly upward. You can have the body of the bird, that's the mitzvah. But you want the bird to fly, it needs a right wing and a left wing, i.e. love and fear. The last thing we were learning, but Alter Rebbe is continuing now in the 40th chapter. Alter Rebbe says, what happens if a person does it habitually, just as a habit? No kavanah, no meaning. Or you learn it even worse. You're learning Torah because you want to become famous, you want to get a job, you want to become, respected or whatever. So in all those cases, Alter Rebbe says it's going down into klipa because you're not learning it properly. You're not having the proper kavanah. But he says, so why does the Gemara say do it anyway? Because Alter Rebbe finishes Perek Lametes by saying the Gemara promises you're going to end up doing tshuva, whether this time around, the next reincarnation around, and then you're going to re-elevate all the Torah that you learned, and all the mitzvahs that you did, and all the davening that you did, where even without kavanah, it's going to be re-elevated back to where it goes. Perek Mem, Alter Rebbe is going to discuss, but what happens until then? If you learn Torah or do mitzvahs for the wrong reason, then what happens until you do tshuva, when it all goes back? So in Perek Mem, the Alter Rebbe says like this. Again, 198 at the bottom, Nun Dalet on top. But until the person actually learns it over again properly, for the right sake, and limud da'ila, his learning does not go up, afilu b'yud sfiris, even to the 10 sfiris, which are me'iris ba'ila ma'yitzira ba'asiyah. Remember, Alter Rebbe explained before, if you have really deep kavanah, it goes up to the world of Bria. And natural kavanah, it goes into Yitzir and Asiyah. Because he says, okay, I'm going to have to explain this outside first. There are 4 worlds. Alter Rebbe is saying something very fundamental here in the definition of the worlds. 4 worlds. There's a world of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah. We could just talk. Each world has 10 spheres. That is not the world. The world has chambers, and it has mochen, dwelling places. It's a whole world. And Atzilus is not only the 10 spheres of Atzilus. In Bria is not only the 10 attributes of Bria. Bria has chambers and it has housing. Like the angels that are in Bria, they're housed there. They're not the 10 spheres. The Malachim in the world of Yetzirah, they are housed there. They live in the world of Yetzirah, but that's not the 10 spheres. The 10 spheres of each world is the kedusha of each world, the godliness that's in the world. There's 10 levels of godliness, each one composed of 10 infinite levels in Atzilus. There's godliness in Bria, there's godliness in Yetzirah, there's godliness in Asiyah. But that's the godliness of the world. There's other levels in the world too. So Alter Rebbe is saying like this. If a person, until he does tshuva, and limuda ela, his learning doesn't go up. Afilu beyut svidus, even to the godly level, which is shining in the world of Yetzirah Vasiyah. It doesn't even hit the godliness. Before he said it goes up to Asiyah or Yetzirah. He says, yeah, but even that, it's not going to the godly level of it. Svidus, because what are the svidus, the 10 levels? Heim bechinus elokus. That is godliness. Ubehem mislabish umisyachad, in those 10 attributes are dressed and one, united, audience of Baruch Hu Mamish, the godliness of Hashem. Ubelay dechilu rechimu, without love and fear, or I'm saying literally means fear and love. Lo yochal lesalka, it's not able, your davening or learning is not able to go up. Lemekim kodem Hashem, to reach to godliness. It's going to go up to the world of Asiyah and Yetzirah, but it's not going to go up to the godly level of it. Like it says in Tikkunim and Tikkunizayah, that limudei eila, the learning goes up, lehecholes, to the chambers, umedurim, and to the housing levels, shein chitzenius eilim, which are the external levels of the world, which is where the angels stand. In other words, like this. Let me explain this. Now, the Rabbi explained before, the higher malachim are in the world of Bria. The lower malachim are in the world of Yetzirah. Even lower malachim in the world of Asiyah. That has nothing to do with the 10 levels of Kedusha of each world. Again, picture a house you have in a home, okay, which is a mini world, so to speak. You have rooms, you have chambers. That's the house, that's the world. Now you bring into that world Kedusha. So Atzilus had very holy levels of Kedusha in it. Bria's 10 levels, the 10 svidus in Bria are lower level of Kedusha. Yetzirah even a lower level of Kedusha. And Asiyah even a minute level of Kedusha. But that's the Kedusha of the world. When you say the Malachim in Yetzirah, it doesn't say anywhere they're in the 10 spheres of Yetzirah. They're in the world of Yetzirah. That's where they are. In the world of Yetzirah, there's also Kedusha. So when you do it with Kavanah, if it's natural, instinctive Kavanah, it goes up to one level, not a different level, a higher level. But that's all in, then it goes into the Kedusha. But if you learn Shaloi Lishma, you do a mitzvah without Kavanah. You don't even want to do it, or you do it for the wrong purposes. You do it to fake people, to fake to people, to bluff, that you should think you're a holy guy. The mitzvah doesn't even go up to the Kedusha of the world. It stays in the chamber of Asiyah or Yetzirah, or for that matter, Bria. Now, let's explain for a few minutes, because this, again, is what's called Chassidus 101. Atzilus is more refined vessels. If they're more refined vessels, they automatically absorb more Kedusha. Bria, the utensils are less refined. Because they're less refined, they absorb less Kedusha. Yetzirah, less refined, even less Kedusha. In other words, to explain it very simply, God is all over. If Hashem is all over equally, Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing but God, how in the world do we have Atzilus is higher than Bria, which is higher than Yetzirah and higher than Asiyah? How does that work? If Hashem's all over, then what's the difference? There is no Atzilus, there's no Bria, there's no Yetzirah, there's nothing. So the answer is very simple. The essence of Hashem is all over. But how much of that essence do you absorb? How much of it do you get into yourself? And Chassidus gives a very simple mashal. You can have the sun shining in the sky. Okay? The sun is shining. There's one sun. There's one essence of the sun. The sun is shining all over the world. Now, if your curtains are closed, you're not going to get sunlight. If they're open, you're going to get more. If they're open more, you're going to get more. So what's it depend? It's not chas v'shom. The sun doesn't change. The sun doesn't shine more into a house with his big windows and shines a little bit in the house with his small windows. And no, it doesn't shine it all into a house that there's no windows. It doesn't work like that. The sun's not changing. The sun is the sun. There's no difference to the sun if your windows are open or closed, if your curtains are open or closed. The sun is the same sun. It couldn't care less. What's the difference? If you make a vessel, in the analogy of the sun, if you open the curtains more, so now you're making a vessel to absorb more sunlight. You open it a little bit less, you're going to get less, and you close it up, seal it tight, you're not going to get anything. The difference between the Yud Sfiras, in other words, the Yud Sfiras is how much godliness actually becomes absorbed in the world of Bria, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. What's the difference between Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah? Fundamentally, the difference is how much is the vessel refined that it can handle the revelation of godliness. Atzilus are holy vessels, meaning completely subjugated, completely bottled, so it gets more. Bria is not so great. In other words, let's paraphrase it a little bit different. Atzilus is such bittul, it's an empty vessel. There's nothing, there's no Atzilus, I'm nothing. If I'm an empty vessel, I can get a lot of stuff in it. What happens if you're a little bit full of yourself? If you're full of yourself, then there's no room for something else. If you're more full of yourself, then there's even less room for something else. Like the Gemara says in Site that we're learning between Pesach and Shavuos, the Gemara says, Hashem says about a haughty person, Ein ani v'hu yochelim loda. I cannot coexist with you. I can exist on something which is nullified to me, something which is full of himself. There's no room for God. Somebody once asked a great tzaddik when he was a little kid, where is God? The kid answered him, wherever you let him in. And God's all over. But for you, where is God? You want to know where God is for you? Wherever you let him in. You let him in, he's there for you. You don't let him in, he's not there. It's up to us. But that's the level of kedusha of the worlds. So if a person has one type of kavanah, intellectual kavanah and emotional kavanah, whatever, and then you have natural kavanah and no kavanah. So the Alter Rebbe says, until you do tshuva and make it go back up to where it belongs, it doesn't even go up to the kedusha of the worlds. And he says, like it says in Achavet, Rabbi Chaim Vital, the student of the Arizal, the Shah Nevuah Perek Beis, from learning Torah without the proper intent, for godliness. You create angels in the world of Yetzirah. My mitzvahs beli kavana, mitzvahs which are more physical, without intent. You create angels in the world of Asiyah. But it's not Kedusha, it's not the 10 spheres. Each one of these angels have matter and form. Angels, by the way, it's interesting. Later on in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, angels also have a body. Believe it or not. But What's the body of angels? Our physical world, everything down here on earth, is composed of the four elements: fire, air, earth, and water. The only difference between one thing and the next is how much composition of air versus water versus, that's the only difference. Malachim are created from two elements. Not earth and water, those are much more physical. Eish and Ruach. Their body is from fire and air. So they're not as tangible physically. The physicality is really from the earth and the water. That's the physical. Fire and air are much more spiritual. So Malachim also have a body, but it's not a tangible body like we have. So you're creating Malachim in those worlds. They have form and matter. Okay, so he says like this. When you learn Torah, not for Kavanah, without Kavanah. Okay, so it goes up. Not to the level of Kedusha, of the worlds. It goes into the chambers of Yetzirah, the chambers of Asiya, and fine. That's when you learn Torah without any intent. What happens, though, the Alter Rebbe is going to say now, if you learn Torah for your personal gratification? He says, I will Torah shalei lishma. If you learn Torah, though, actively, not for the right sake. Again, li is Talmud Chacham. You want to be a scholar? Want everybody to call you a scholar? Then you're learning it not for God. Then you're learning it only for yourself. That's in a certain respect worse than learning it for no reason whatsoever, out of habit. Why? It doesn't even go up. Not even to the chambers, it doesn't even go up to forget the spheres. He says, when a person learns a does mitzvah shelo b'kavanah, but again, what does it mean shelo b'kavanah? Nothing negative. You're doing it. That's it. Sometimes when you learn, so it goes up. He says, not to the 10 attributes of the world. That's kedusha. It doesn't go to kedusha. It goes to the chambers of the worlds. When a person, though, learns for personal gratification, that's much worse. Why? Then you're using God for what's good for me. That's much worse than just doing it. In other words, when you do a mitzvah without kavanah, there's no negativity. You might be lacking positivity. You're not doing it for the right reasons. But you're not actively doing something bad. When you learn it for personal gratification, that's a negative act of taking God's holy Torah, which Hashem wants us to learn just because it's his Torah. And he wants us to do mitzvahs because that's what he wants us to do. And instead, the guy comes along and uses it for himself. That stays in Tumah. It doesn't even go up to the spiritual dwelling place at all. And that's even worse. He says, it stays, it doesn't even go up to the spiritual world of Asiya. It stays down here in the physical world, Shumadar HaKlipas, which is the source of Klipa, the dwelling place of Klipa. It doesn't go anywhere. Nevertheless, you should do it anyway, because then eventually you're going to do tshuva, and you're going to re-elevate everything back to where it was initially. You're going to re-elevate everything back to where it was initially. Back into Kedusha. But he says you should still do it. But until you do tshuva, it's not going up too much. Yeah, you did the physical mitzvah. You fulfilled the mitzvah. But because you didn't have life to the mitzvah, you didn't have the wings, you didn't have the vitality, you didn't have the love and the fear, the neshama of the mitzvah, the neshama, the soul, can carry it very high. But without the neshama, basically what you're doing is you're lowering it. It doesn't go too high. So if you're just doing it power of, not positive, not negative, it goes to the chambers of Asiyah for mitzvahs and Yitzira for learning, fine. But if you're doing it negatively, then it stays down here in Klipa. And this is what the Zohar says in the Pasuk. Okay? Al Pasuk, Ma Yisn La'adam. Shlomo says in Kehalis, what is the profit of a man? B'chol amaloi, of all his efforts, sheyamol tachas Hashem, that he's going to work under the sun. Simply, Shlomo Melech says, what do you gain by all the work you do under the sun? It's everything, nothing anyway. Shlomo Melech and Kehalis, Hakol Hevel, everything is nothing. He says basically, why are you wasting your time for all the effort you do under the sun? But Kabbalah comes along and says, no, it's a much deeper pasuk. It means, afilu amalo de'eraisa, even the work of Torah, I'avid begin yikarin, if he's doing it for his own glory, the pasuk says, what are you gaining by that? You're not gaining anything, because it's under the sun. You have to reach over the sun. You know, the world asks an interesting contradiction of two Gemaras. I mean, what Shlomo Melech says, Ein kol chodesh tachas hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. Shlomo Melech says it in Kehalis. Ein kol chodesh tachas hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. Yet, the Gemara says, Ein beis hamedrash b'lo chiddush. There's no base medrash learning without something new. There's a contradiction. Here Shlomo Melech says under the sun, there's nothing new. And here it says you have a base medrash, you have a chiddush. So the world is not serious. The world says very simple. When you're sitting under the sun, I mean you're taking a sun bath and you're tanning and that's all you're doing. Yeah. Ain't kol chodesh, nothing new is going to happen from it. When you learn Torah, based on medrash, you're going to explain soon, Torah is higher than the sun, then you're going to have new accomplishments. So now the Rabbi is saying that level of Torah that he's doing for personal gratification is not even going to go up anyway. It's going to stay under the sun in the realm of klipa and evil. And that's what it says. This is what the Gemara says. Ashre mi shebalakan the Talmud biyodin. The Gemara says, fortunate is the one that comes to Gan Eden and his learning is in his hand. Okay, what does that mean? All the commentaries ask. It doesn't say his learning is in his mind. Okay, but here the Alter Rebbe says a very simple thing. What does the Gemara mean? Fortunate is a person who comes to Gan Eden with the Torah in their hand. Because if you learn Torah improperly, it stays down here. You don't bring it up with you to Gan Eden. It stays down here. What does the Gemara say? Ashri mi shebalakan. Fortune is the one that comes to Gan Eden, whether it's Yitzira, the lower Gan Eden, or Bria, the higher Gan Eden, and he brought his learning with him. It didn't keep it down here under the sun in the realm of Klipa, in the realm of evil, because then it doesn't go up. And he said, so now the Alter Rebbe is going to ask, I'm just saying because we're going to stop in 2 minutes. So the Alter Rebbe is going to ask now, but if Torah and Hashem are all one, how could Torah be in the world of evil? How can Torah be in the world of Tumah if Torah is one with Hashem? So the Alter Rebbe is going to explain, like we spoke about before, it's not how much the sun is shining. It's how much sun you're getting. Yes, Torah and Hashem are one. In essence, Torah and Hashem is one. But how much of Torah are you getting? Are you making a vessel for it? If you're not making a vessel, you're not going to get it. If you make a vessel anti-God, meaning for your own gratification, then for sure you're not going to get it. Okay, we're going to stop here. Once again, next Wednesday night, Mitzvah Shem, there's no class. Monday night, there is a class. So hopefully we'll see you all Monday night. Until then, have a very good Shabbos, good Chodesh, and only good things.